Medical Director of Miami Cancer Institute, Dr. Zinner.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Zinner, the CEO and Executive Medical Director of Miami Cancer Institute. Miami Cancer Institute is South Florida's newest and most complete cancer center. And today I'm delighted to host our second virtual Inspire You. Through Inspire You, we strive to bring a presentation that will in fact inspire hope, positivity, and especially in these challenging times that we're all living in. We're so glad to be able to introduce today one of our very special guests, and it will be in that effort to give back to the community the things that we feel are important for the community in these challenging times. Today, it brings me great pleasure to introduce you to our special speaker. It's Brandon Phillips. As a professional polo player, he won many of the sport's most prestigious tournaments. His biggest victory, however, has been overcoming stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. After surviving childhood cancer, Brandon vowed to dedicate his life to pursuing what he loved the most, polo. He would later not only become a professional player, but an advocate for families that face this challenging issue of surviving pediatric cancer by creating something called Polo for Life, a nonprofit dedicated to raising funds to help pediatric patients get through this terrible period along with their families. Since 2014, their annual event, Polo for a Purpose, has raised nearly $2 million to help fund programs for families impacted by pediatric cancer diagnosis. And under the leadership of Brandon, Polo for Life chose Miami Cancer Institute as one of its beneficiaries. In February, we received a $90,000 donation to support our pediatric patients and their families. What a difference this kind of contribution can make to the lives of our pediatric patients and their loving families. Joining Brandon today, we have two of Miami Cancer Institute's leading experts. First, Dr. Gunther Kona. He's Deputy Director and Chief of the Bone Marrow and Transplant Program. He's also in charge of hematologic malignancy and benign hematology. And second, Dr. Matthew Hall. He's the lead pediatric radiation oncologist and director of the Live Like Bella Pediatric Radiation Oncology Program. They're here to discuss the latest in treatments of hematology and pediatric cancer. So at this time, I'd like you to join me in welcoming Brandon Phillips, and then Dr. Kona, and then Dr. Hall. Mr. Phillips, please take it over.
Unmute myself. All right, getting used to this. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's quite an honor to be here and be with all these very important people on this screen. So I'm very happy to be a part of this, and thank you for inviting me. So I guess what we're here is to hopefully to shed some light and inspire some people, or at least tell my story and see what everyone thinks. So starting from who I am, I'm obviously Brandon Phillips. I'm currently a professional polo player. I've been a professional polo player since 1995. When I was 17, I started. Originally from Toronto, Canada, just actually a little town called King City, just north of Toronto, about 40 minutes. And I grew up there on a horse farm. And my father and my brother played polo as amateurs. We were all up in Toronto at that point, and this would have been, in the 80s. Polo was just an amateur sport, just a lot of fun, kind of weekend warrior stuff. So as a family, we had a couple horses, and we all would share them around and get to play. My mother fox hunted, and I have my whole other side of the family's show jumpers. Some are professionals. I have two uncles that have been in the Olympics for the Canadian team. So it's a very horsey background, but growing up, my priority, my focus when I was younger was hockey. I mean, horses was something you did with the family. It was fun in the summers, but hockey is what I started doing when I started at 4 years old. And that's kind of really where my goals were set at the beginning, were hockey. So then, as I got getting a little older, I started playing polo a little more. I started my first game when I was 11 years old. I played at the Toronto Polo Club with my father and his friends, and we just kind of, I was the little kid running around. I was the only kid at the time in the polo club. I think the next youngest person was probably mid-20s. So anyway, we just played for fun. And so I started then actually growing quite a bond with the horses and, growing up with them, and they're in our backyard, and I started to enjoy them quite a bit. But again, hockey was always at the forefront. And so then as I got a little older then, 12, 13, 14, I started playing polo a little more. Again, keeping with all other sports. And then it all happened when I was 14. It would have been June 7th, 1992 was the exact day. I had played that week. I played rugby that week for my school. I had played soccer for that school. I played hockey for the town that week. And the night before, which was a Saturday night, I played soccer that night. Woke up the Sunday morning. There you see a picture. That was probably about a month into it. I still had eyebrows, so it was about a month into treatment there with my mother. So then when the Sunday morning, I woke up and my left leg was aching, which of course, thinking it was a sports injury since I played every sport that week there was. And, thought growing pains, which I get, those aches and pains in your legs. So of course I go to the, shower, wait, it's going to go away. Finally doesn't go away. But an hour later, I wake up my mom. I was like, Mom, something, my leg is killing. She looks and notices at the top of my leg, there were some broken blood vessels. So she said, well, that's not normal. So we go to the local hospital. There, they first saw me. They thought, okay, I have a blood clot. Something's not working right in that leg. So they do some tests, and there's no blood clot. Blood work's a little off. They're not sure what's going on. So luckily that we're only 40 minutes from downtown Toronto and 40 minutes away from the Hospital for Sick Children, which is an unbelievable hospital there in Toronto. And so they sent me there right away. So by now it's Sunday afternoon. We had to head down there. And they go through every test they can go through, and they find a softball-size tumor that was wrapped around my left ureter and pushing on the lymph nodes of my left leg. So basically what they come with was my left kidney had obviously not been working for about a month. I didn't know because my right kidney was working fine. So then they said, your left ureter has been constricted, your lymph nodes now have been pushed, and your leg's starting to swell. We need to get in and get a biopsy, and let's hope this is just a benign tumor, but we're going to see. They obviously, I'm 14 at the time, so they haven't really been saying too many things to me, just that, hey, you're going to go in and we're just going to, test and see what this mass is. They also tell me, they go, if it is malignant, and from what they're obviously feeling at the time before the biopsy that it was probably going to be, is we're going to put a portacath in your chest so we get it all done right away. So it says if we feel it's malignant, we're going to keep you while you're under and put basically a box in my chest to prepare for chemotherapy. So I just remember going in as a kid going, okay, if I wake up and I don't feel anything in my chest, everything's good. So I go in for the biopsy. Of course, I'm wake up with a donut around my chest. I'm like, uh-oh. And I start to feel, and I feel something's there. And my mother was right there. And she's, of course, the strongest woman in the world. And she's, oh, no, don't worry. Yes, it was malignant, but you're fine. You're just going to go through some drugs for a little bit, and we'll be done with this. And that really was kind of the consensus with my family the whole time. This was we're just now getting through a hurdle. This is basically a pain in the butt, and you're just going to get through this, and we'll get on with our lives. So it turned out then being a stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And actually, just speaking with my mother last night, she corrected it was a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma / Burkitt's is what they called it. I don't really know what that means, except that it was quite bad, is what I was told. The initial prognosis was not good. Obviously without any immediate treatment, they said it could be 6 weeks or less or more, give or take. That then it was not good. So I had to hit my family probably a lot harder than even myself, because I, not quite knowing all the things. I just knew I was sick, and they're going to give me drugs, and I was going to be better. So I do remember the main thing, the oncologist comes in and, I'm like, all right, I'm positive, got that athlete mentality. I was like, okay, what do we got? What do I have to do? How are we getting through this? And he put it in athlete terms, I guess you can say. And he goes, well, Brandon, we're going to come in and the protocol we're putting you on is called the Berlin protocol they did. And it is very, very aggressive. He says, we're going to hit you with a baseball bat every 2 weeks. And the second you start to feel better, we're going to hit you again with a baseball bat until you knock you back down. And I was like, whatever. I mean, how bad could you feel? I mean, it's drugs. It's not, I'll be fine. So right away, we're like, okay, they're going to, start giving me this chemotherapy. But with the seriousness of it, I mean, the tumor was still growing. And they said they had a very good chance of losing my left leg. And my left kidney was 90% chance they're going to have to take out. And, this was getting a little serious. They literally come in with a tape measure and hourly measure my left leg. And it's like it gets to a certain point, it's going to have to go. So they started the chemotherapy immediately. And of course, while they're administering the drugs, I didn't know you don't feel anything. So I'm like, oh, they're giving me all these drugs. It was about 5 days in hospital of drugs. And so it started to, I was feeling fine. I'm like, this is nothing. And then they said, no, wait, give it a couple of days and it's going to hit you. And when they told me they're hitting you with a baseball bat, it felt like a Mack truck. It got bad. So I was the idea was the first 30 days, I basically didn't leave the hospital because they were worried about my leg, my kidney. I had a stent put in my left kidney trying to open up the ureter. So I had a bag out the side. I was, quite a mess the first 30 days. I honestly don't remember much of the first 30 days. It was just a slew of doctors and tears and everyone freaking out. And then we started to get on a program. The program then consisted of a week of in-hospital administration of the drugs, the chemo. Then they said, okay, go home for a week and then come back. Well, that go home for a week usually would be about a day and a half to 2 days. Fever would hit, counts would be drop, and then it was time to come get basically back to the hospital. They try to keep you alive, get your counts back up, and then as soon as I started to feel better, they moved me back to the chemo floor. I remember floor number 6 of the 6th floor of between the 6th and the 9th floor. I always remember those two numbers of kids cancer for the hospital for sick children, and back to the floor, and then give you another week of chemotherapy. So that kind of consisted, every other week was spinal taps, because they basically hit you head to toe with everything. So they test the cerebral fluid and then put chemo in through my spine and get up to my brain. Technically, I guess you're supposed to have every other treatment, probably 8 or 9. I count as 22 spinal taps because I counted every time they put in a needle. And sometimes the needle didn't work the first time. They were trying to hit the right spot. So I counted 22 times a needle went into my spine. Some were some missed shots by the doctors, but I counted as that. So anyway, went through this whole treatment, and so then I guess this was now started in that first day, June 7th, 92. Basically finished it was 5 months of treatment, back and forth, exactly, in a week administrate, out for a day and a half, 2 days, back in for a week trying to stay alive, then back in for chemo, and then, that kind of routine for four and a half months. Unbelievable side effects. I remember the one drug still to this day, adriamycin, which is orange. I remember red going into your body. I used to tape the IVs with the toilet paper so I couldn't see the red going in because I knew this was going to cause pain. And that's what I get the mouth sores, which if you ever mouth sores, if you had a little canker sore where it's a little white, well, I had my complete mouth, lips, throat, tongue was white. At one point I had to get on a feeding tube because I couldn't open my mouth. Every time you open it, they'd crack and I'd have blood coming everywhere. I learned tricks of the trade. I mean, sit there with ice. Remember one doctor telling me, you could put popsicles. Not a chance. I mean, you need anything with sugar or something would send you through the roof. So it was just straight ice, sitting there holding ice in my mouth for hours a day. That was the worst side effect by far. So when I saw that red drug going in, I knew I was in for a world of hurt for about a week. But anyway, that was my summer of non-fun. And the whole time, the most important thing, which, looking back and what I did through that time, obviously my family was a huge support, but there was never any negativity. I mean, I had kids in my room that literally were dying, that night, I remember a kid going for surgery. He never came back to my room. I remember myself going in for one of the surgeries and seeing the local news in the waiting room, and a kid that I was, playing with hanging out in the teen room with the week before it just died. So kids were dying around me, but I never in my life, never that summer at all ever thought that I would be, even close to dying. I put it in, and my family put it in as a very, mental thinking of this had to be positive. This was turning everything positive, the humor my family has, coming in, constantly seeing people, and this was to me a test. How I put it in my mind is this is a test from God. This was another test, and I'm going to beat it. There was no question of death. There was no question of not winning. This was a game, another game, and we're just going to have to beat it. And how I used, right before I got sick, I was leading up that spring, preparing a lot with the horses and starting to play more and more polo. And my father had offered that summer, we were limited on horses, and he was playing, and my brother would play a bit. He said, listen, this summer you can have the horses we got, and really, concentrate on playing some polo a little more. Then obviously 2 weeks later, this happened to me. And to be honest, lack of better words, it just really pissed me off. Like, I had a great summer organized. I had finally enough horses. I was going to go start playing some tournaments, and then this hit me. So it angered me. Cancer angered me. It didn't put me down. It just pissed me off, and I was like, all right, I got to get through this to get back to my life and to get back to what I wanted to do. So by September, October, everything was done. I started to go back to school probably the end of October. And, it was a whole, again, a process of just put it behind me and let's I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to go back to school. I didn't want to talk about it with my friends. I didn't even want to see bald people. I mean, that I turn off the TV if there's someone on it, regardless of cancer, just a bald person. I mean, I just wanted to shut that part of my life off. And as it gets over, I beat it and we move on now. And so I was back on the basketball team by late November. And then started playing polo that winter. We played in the arena and started getting, back and just strength back. I went in healthy as a 14-year-old at 135 pounds. I got down to 104 pounds. Obviously just, my body took a heck of a beating. So just, again, fighting back again in the fall. So then I got going again, playing through that winter, back to school, back to normality. And it was just, again, I never thought, I still remember this day when I went back to school. I remember my math teacher, I went in and, obviously getting behind school, and it was just him and I, and he sat me down. He goes, did you ever think you were going to die? And it literally was that moment that I was like, it was even an option. I was like, death was I never even thought about it. And this was a month after my last treatment. At one point, I never thought about death or me dying. I just thought about getting pissed off, and I want to get over this. So it was really after all the treatment that my teacher said that, he literally just came straight out and goes, did you think you're going to die? And I was like, no, I mean, that was never an option. So I really found through my sickness, what positivity. I remember even my mother and I would do a lot of mentalization things. When I was having the spinal taps, I would take a bad reaction to any type of sedative or anything. It would actually make it worse. So I started doing the last 10 spinal taps with no sedative, no pain medicine, nothing. And I still remember this day with my mother sitting there with me, and we put ourselves on a beach. And we're walking on. It was a whole mentalization, and there was times they did the spinal tap, and I didn't even know they had done it. Literally just by putting my mind somewhere else in a positive place. And so I started learning all this at a young age of what mentalization and what positive thinking and support that I had with my family, and that it really was huge. Again, it was just something to help me get over this hurdle. So moving forward, we fast forward. So I turned 15 right after November. So by 17, I was 16 and a half. I got asked then almost 2 years later, got asked to go down to Florida, to Wellington, Florida, and start playing. A team wanted to try me out for polo. And to be honest, I really didn't even, at that point, I know I wanted to play polo, but this opportunity fell on my lap in such a short time. I was thinking I had many years to go. And there we go. So when I was 17, I went down to Florida. This would have been in 95. Got hired by a professional team, a White Birch Polo team. And went from there. I played for them for 4 years, then got hired by another top professional, which is kind of the Michael Jordan of the game, Memo Gracita. At the time, he then hired me, and I mentored under him as well for another 3-4 years. And then I was probably 8 years into my career before then I started to get my own operation and start purchasing my own horses and build up my own brand, I guess, so to speak. So that was kind of where we got to. And then, I never looked back. So I was still at that point. I remember my first big game, my first final, the finals of the Gold Cup in Palm Beach Polo and Country Club. And we're in front of, 4,000, 5,000 people. And again, I didn't want anyone to know about my illness. I didn't want anyone to know that I had cancer. I was like, I don't want that to be a crutch. I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. It's done. I'm here to play polo. And I remember the announcer who was, he knew me and they knew my story and started announcing it at halftime, as I'm coming out on the field, telling the story to 5,000 people. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I was like, the last thing I wanted to all these people to know what, I went through. I just didn't want anyone to know, and I didn't want to talk about it. And that was pretty much how I felt for, I would have been 17. Late 20s. Probably by the time I was almost 30 years old. It took probably 10, 12 years. And I decided, I said, you know what, I'm older now. I'm matured. I'm done with it. Let's, I need to start, I would say, giving back. Because I know what it did for, how the positives, believe it or not, how the positive things I came out with from cancer, which I find every day, we're playing a game right now, a very important game, or something stressful comes out in the day, and most people would freak out, and I sometimes get myself, oh my God, I get stressed, and then you sit down and go, that's not stress. Stress is sitting there in your room waiting for the doctor to come in to tell you if you're going to die, if the tumor shrunk, if the tumor's bigger, that's stress. Sitting looking at your mother as she's trying to be my father and my brother, them all trying to be so tough, and knowing the second they leave the room, they're bawling their eyes out because they're just as scared. And that is pressure. That is something that is hard to deal with. Daily life like we have now, my car runs out of gas, I lose a polo game, we can fix that. That is stuff that's really helped me, and it's helped me when I've gone into some very big games, and you start to get nervous, you start the butterflies, and you go, whoa, wait a minute. And you settle down, and I drop back on my past experiences of what happened when I had cancer, and it brings you back to reality. And it's like, okay, this is a game. You're going to do your best. You're going to put everything out there, but it's not life or death. And that's really helped me. I've always kind of thought back to when the stress level gets to an area, wait, this isn't stress. So using that, moving forward, I want to relay this. There's got to be, I can't be the only one that feels this all the time, and started to think about looking in our community. By this time, I now live in Wellington, Florida, call that home now. I'm basically there 8 months a year. Obviously right now I'm in Virginia. I'm playing here now. The summers we travel. So I'm just at my barn in Virginia now. We started this week playing. So I travel all summer, but I'm back in Wellington as home. So it's like, what can we do in our community? Start to do stuff. And so I do little things. And with the polo club, with the International Polo Club, they'd have me do certain things. And finally one day, in 2014, it was Terry Mooney, who was working for the International Polo Club at the time. She was part of the marketing team, and said, would you like to do something with the local LLS, the Leukemia Lymphoma Society here in Palm Beach? I said, sure. I definitely like to chip in. And so we decided to make a little polo game at the club, and do have a little people out, a little cocktail, and see what we can do and try to raise it. So we came up with the name Polo for Purpose, and we had a little outing, and it was great, very successful. We put together a nice event, and we made $40,000 that day, and I was like, wow, this was just to put together a few months of work, and look what we could do. LLS was very happy with it, and so let's try it for the next year. So we started to build our team a little stronger, and very close friends of mine, and thank God they wanted to jump in, was PJ Risby and Bisa Waddell decided to join with Terry and I, and start Polo for a Purpose now in 2015. That year we went bigger everything. Can't remember the exact numbers, but we at least got around $100,000 the next year, which was unbelievable. And then we just kept growing year after year. Now this last year, we had done everything, and all 100% of our earnings would go to Leukemia Lymphoma Society, and they do amazing things with it. And so then I started thinking, you know what? There's other needs out there. There's other people I would love to be able to share this money with that we're making. And so we decided to go on our own. I decided now to try to make my own 501c3 and move forward, and that's what we did. Called Polo for Life. So for 2020, this past year, was our first official year as ourselves, and running it and handpicking our benefactors, or beneficiaries, and who we like to distribute it to. And obviously, Miami Cancer Institute was one of them. And we then grossed this year. We grossed over $500,000 in about a 6-hour event. Where we just each year now growing, and this was our biggest year yet, and we were really, really excited about it with a lot of people helping us, and we made a very, very nice event. So now we've raised, like I said, close to $1.8 million in the last 6 events, I guess now, and we know our sights are set to go much higher and to go, see what we can do each year. We're going to try to do some other events. Polo for Life is going to be trying to do some more events for the year. Fortunately, now with COVID, some of our plans, as of everyone's, been put on hold of what we can do. But we're still planning to go forward with our 2021 Polo for a Purpose in January at the International Polo Club. So with luck and everyone's able to be in a room together and able to come support, we're going to still stay strong and hope we can do that for next year. Worst case, we have to wait one more year. But that's kind of where I've come along now with from how I want to use what I've done. Use Polo. I want to use Polo as basically my vehicle to get through to families and children that went through the same thing I did, because I really understand mainly what families go through, not only what a child goes through, and especially being a teenager. I was 14. I knew exactly what was going on as far as you couldn't hide too much from me. You're a 14-year-old kid, you get it. But I just really wanted to, help people that went through it I did, and someone to be there and explain it. It's one thing for a doctor, or it's one thing for a social worker, someone to give you the support. But I always felt someone that I know that has been through it, knows what the fear, knows what the emotional pain, the physical pain, the mental pain, and families too, to talk to mothers, to fathers, to realize how important it is to be positive and keep a positive environment for your child. I've seen it on both sides. From when I was a kid, I still remember kids that their parents were negative. Their parents were more upset than they were, and the child just always saw their parents upset. And you can't fight a fight with any type of negativity around you. And I really, really feel it was people around me helped me be where I am today. So that was my biggest thing that I got from cancer, and how it sounds so stupid to say how cancer made me a professional polo player. I mean, you think about that, like that just sounds ridiculous, but it did. It gave me the drive. Also gave me time to realize what I really loved. When they took polo away from me and took horses away from me when I was sick, because you couldn't be, I couldn't be near any animals. I couldn't have the infections. I couldn't have anything. That when you took something away from you, I realized, I sat and went, I want to do this. I still went back to hockey after I was sick, and I still, had to play at a lower level. Obviously, kids at 15 and 16 were growing quite big, and all of a sudden, I was still trying to fight back from my 104 pounds. So going into certain levels of hockey wasn't where I used to play. I wasn't physically strong enough to compete at that point. But polo was something I could compete in. I could get on a horse, and I could run around as fast as anyone and build my strength that way. So that's how I felt now, kind of as a total package of what polo did. Polo just with the horses, and just gave me that energy to fight back, and now I'm very happy and proud to be where I am now. And now I'm going to be even more happy and more proud to be able to help and share and do what I can for other people and other families. So hopefully I didn't bore you guys all too much with the story. I think that's kind of around the time I'm supposed to